So this is my presentation. My book was Salman Rushdie's The Satanic Verses, and no, it's not like the devil Satan, but I'll get to that in a second. So my book is extremely controversial. It has to do with a lot of the clash between Eastern and Western cultures, because a lot of his writing has to do with like Eastern immigrants moving to somewhere in the West and kind of, you know, dealing with that. And so it's called the Satanic Verses because there's this like legend of Islam that one day Muhammad went up on the mountain to talk to the angel Gabriel, and the angel Gabriel told him, you can let the people worship these three like pre-Islamic pagan goddesses. And then he went back down and like accepted it, but then he was like doubting it, and he was like, oh wait, just kidding, the devil said that, not Gabriel. So he like retracted it, and it's not written in any like authentic source of Islam, so like the Quran or anything. But it is recorded in some other people's like journals, and most Muslim scholars reject it, saying that it never happened because it's not in anything authentic, but most non-Muslim scholars do say like, yeah, that probably happened. So because of this book, there was a lot of protest when it was first released in Europe, and there was also like book burnings. But then when it was released in the United States, it gained like a lot more heat. So there was actually 78 bomb threats and 4 actual bombings at like bookstores that were selling the book. And then later, the Ayatollah Khomeini, who's the supreme leader of Iran, issued a fatwa against Rushdie, which is basically an order saying anyone can kill him, and it was like a $6 million bounty. So it's still in place. Probably don't like pursue that, but it's still in place, and but Iran doesn't support it anymore. And so for this one, so because the book, it's like a really big deal because it puts the two like main values of like East and West like against each other. So from Rushdie's point of view, it was about like free speech and not blasphemy, so like that's more of the Western perspective. But from the Eastern perspective, it was like blasphemy against the Prophet, and it was like not free speech, it was just like downright like outrageous. So how the book starts is there's these like terrorists, and they hold this plane hostage for 111 days in a desert, and then they take off again, and while they're flying over the English Channel, the 2 of the terrorists get in a big fight, and they blow up the plane. And so there's these 2 people, Gabriel and Saladin, and they fall from the plane, and they land in the water, and then they're the only 2 people who manage to survive, but everyone thinks that, like, everyone's dead, so no one believes that they're alive. But while they are falling, Gabriel has a vision. And so he has this vision that this businessman named Mahound, which is an anagram for Muhammad, goes to the city of Jahilia and asks them if they will follow this religion he has started called the Submission. And the like main guy in the city says, well, we can accept your religion if you say you'll worship these 3 pagan goddesses. And so Mahound goes up to the mountain to find guidance, and he says, okay, he accepts it, and he comes back down and realizes it was the devil. So like that's the part that has to deal with the Satanic Verses, is one of the visions. And so then it comes back to when they're in the water, so they crawl out, and 2 people see them and report it as suspicious, but Gabriel and Saladin are saved by this nice lady named Rosa Diamond, and she like takes them into her house. But the police come to arrest them because it was like suspicious, and so Saladin gets dragged out. Oh, also while they were falling, Gabriel turns into an actual angel, and Saladin turns into like a devil and starts growing horns and cloven hooves. So they arrest Saladin, and they beat the crap out of him, and like to the point where he's almost dead, so they take him to the hospital. And when he's in the hospital, the doctor tries to treat him for pneumonia by beating it out of him, so he like pounds his lungs to try to get rid of his pneumonia. And then this man with a lion head comes up to him, so like also there's other people who are turned into animals, and says that the English people have a power of description of immigrants, and so that's why they're turning into animals, is because of what the English people say about them. And then Gabriel has another vision where there's this adopted girl named Aisha, and she says she has lain with the angel Gabriel, and has this vision that her mom can be cured of cancer if everyone follows her to Mecca. But it doesn't make sense because if they were to follow her to Mecca, they would have to go through a sea. So like it couldn't actually happen. And then it comes back to Gabriel and Saladin again, and Gabriel has gone back to London where he wants to make a film about his visions, and while he's promoting the film, he has like this episode and he levitates and he ends up on this girl's doorstep who was like his ex-lover. And then it goes back to the vision of Jahilia where Mahound comes back and he ends up like being able to convert the whole city. So yeah. And then Saladin, while this was happening, he was being hidden in a hotel by his wife's lover, which is confusing. So they're at a party and the party ends up catching on fire, and Saladin had prank called Gabriel saying that Gabriel's lover was having an affair, but it was actually just like a prank. It didn't actually happen, but it like really upset him. So even though Gabriel saved Saladin out of the burning building, even though he had the chance to let him die, which like maybe he should have because he was playing these jokes on him. And then it goes back to the vision of Aisha, and basically the people are kind of starting to lose faith in her, so they like stop following her. But then they see this like big swarm of butterflies going into the sea, but actually everyone just like drowns in the sea because like she wasn't actually like a prophetess or anything. But then her dad sees the vision and he finally accepts her, and then they walk into the sea together, so that ends them. And then after the fires, it comes back to Saladin and Gabriel like 8 months later, and Gabriel comes back and is really upset by the prank calls and ends up murdering Alleluia, who was his lover and also his like agent for the movies. So it ends with murder. So the main themes of my novel are immigration, because Saladin and Gabriel are both immigrants from India to England, and so there's like a lot of like struggles that they deal with that kind of lead into like the later themes. And then there's also like instances of immigration within the visions. So like Aisha is not from where like she's like adopted, so she's like not she's an immigrant also. And then there's like several other like minor characters that are immigrants, so it kind of deals with that perspective. And like Rushdie as well himself is an immigrant. And so then it comes to racism, which is kind of like something that the immigrants deal with. So the power of description, Saladin becomes a devil because that's how the English people see him, like just because of the color of his skin. And then the police, whenever they beat him after they drag him out of the house, it's like because of how he looks, even though he's trying to prove to him that he is a genuine English citizen, which he is. He just doesn't have his paper because he just fell out of a plane. And then religion. So there's two main struggles, like the Christianity or atheism of the West in England, and then like Islam in the East. And then there's like the vision of Mahound. So before he went to Jahilia, it was a pagan country, and then he converts it to his religion, which is the submission, which is like an allegory for Islam.